Long ago, there was a village named Mwanzo, meaning the beginning, and at the heart of it ran a river the people called Nyota, the Star River, because at night its surface caught the light of 10,000 stars and threw them back at the sky. It was the most beautiful thing anyone had ever seen, and it was the most important. It fed the crops, watered the animals, carried away the waste and brought in the fresh. The women washed at its edge, and the children swam in its shallows. When a child was born in Mwanzo, the elders carried the infant to Nyota's banks and whispered the river's name into the child's ear before any other word. That was how important this river was. Life wasn't perfect in Mwanzo, but it was good. The harvests came, the rains came, and the river always flowed. But water has no loyalty. It has only nature, and Nyota's nature was to move. One year, the rains came earlier than usual. They were heavier, longer, more generous than the village had ever known. The river swelled above its normal line. The water grew dark, fast and loud, in a way it had never been loud before. And the people celebrated. "More water," they said. "More abundance. The river is blessing us." The farmers planted more seed than ever before, right up to the water's edge. The women washed their finest cloth in the river, pulling it through the current, watching the colors deepen and brighten. The children ran and jumped from higher banks. Everyone leaned into the abundance, without asking what it costs. Only one person wasn't celebrating. Her name was Amara. She sat at the highest point of the village and watched the river quietly. She didn't join in on the celebrations. She just watched. One evening, a young farmer named Kofi came to her. "Elder," he said, "why don't you rejoice? The river gives us more than ever." She turned to him. "Tell me, Kofi," she said, "when a man is given more than his pots can hold, what happens to the village?" He laughed. "That's not what is happening." "No, not yet," she said quietly. If only he knew how right she was. One night, without any warning whatsoever, the river crossed the threshold. She simply decided that the banks were not enough, that she was more than any boundary that had been placed upon her. And she moved. By morning, the lower fields were gone. Not flooded, gone. The water had taken them entirely, roots and seed and months of labor, carried away downstream to somewhere no one in Mwanzo would ever see again. The mud walls of 4 homes had dissolved. The grain stores of 7 families sat in 2 feet of dark water. People ran through knee-deep current, pulling children, dragging animals, screaming names into the wind. Kofi stood at the edge of what had been his field, the field his father had worked, the field he had planted extra seed in just weeks before, right up to the water's edge. It was completely swept away. The weeks that followed were the hardest in living memory. The water did not recede quickly. It sat across the lower village like a guest who would not leave, very slowly pulling back, but leaving behind mud and ruin. The crops that were not washed away rotted in standing water. The animals that survived needed feeding, but the feed was ruined. Families who had eaten well for years stood in lines, holding empty hands, asking neighbors for grain. And through it all, Nyota kept flowing. She didn't care about the crops, the children who cried, or the elders who prayed. She was a river. She moved because moving was her nature. She didn't flood because she was angry, but because she had been given no direction or shape. There was no boundary that told her here and no further. And that's the thing about abundance without structure. It doesn't know where to go. So it goes everywhere. And when abundance goes everywhere, it nourishes nothing. The elders gathered under the oldest tree in Mwanzo to think about what to do. It was Amara who spoke first. "We have been asking the wrong question. We have been asking, how do we stop the river? How do we make it obey? But the river cannot be stopped. And it cannot obey. and it has done nothing wrong. This surprised everyone in attendance. An elder named Jabari leaned forward. It destroyed our harvest, Amara. It took our homes. No, she said softly. We gave it no direction, and so it found its own. That is not the river's failure. That is ours. The silence that followed was the kind that changes things. We must not cage the river, she continued. We must guide it, give it banks to focus what it gives. A river with banks does not become less of a river. It becomes more of a river. It runs deeper and faster, and it nourishes every field it passes, instead of drowning the ones closest to its edge. The elders said nothing, but something shifted inside them. The building of the banks was hard work and took an entire season to complete. They dug channels and packed earth and laid stone. They redirected water from the main river into smaller veins that reached fields that had never been watered before. They built overflow passages for the times of heavy rain in order to carry the excess water safely away to the reservoir they carved from the hillside above the village. When the work was done, they stood at the edge and watched Nyota move. She was the same river, but now she moved with purpose. She reached the northern fields and the southern gardens. She reached the terraces carved into the hillside that had been dry for 3 generations. She nourished all of them because now she had been given direction. And when the heavy rains came that next year, Nyota rose, but the overflow found the channels, and the channels found the reservoir, and the reservoir found the dry season streams. Nothing was lost. Everything was guided. The harvest that year was the greatest in the history of Mwanzo. The night of the harvest feast, Kofi found Amara sitting again at the high point of the village, watching the river as always. I was wrong, he said. You were young, she corrected him. He sat beside her for a long time. What I don't understand, he said finally, is why it took the flood. Why did we not build the banks before? We had the river all our lives. She looked at him and said, because when something gives us life, we do not question it. We do not structure it or set boundaries around it. We are afraid that structure and limits will shrink or kill it, that a boundary is the same as a cage. But it isn't, Kofi said. No, she replied. It never was. The banks are real freedom, the kind that lasts. She turned back to the river. Far below them, Nyota ran on, guided, purposeful, and alive, as she always had been, as she always would be, as long as someone remembered to give her direction. Now, let's see what money lessons we can draw from this tale. Lesson 1. Boundaries aren't punishment, they're direction. The village didn't fail because the river was too powerful, but because no one had given the river a direction. We do the same thing with money. When money first comes into our lives, a salary, a windfall, a raise, we feel abundance and possibility. And the last thing we want to do in that moment is put a rule around it. Because rules feel like restrictions, like we're taking something beautiful and putting it in a cage. But here is what no one tells you. Unguided abundance isn't freedom. It's a slow flood. Think about the people who earn a lot of money and still end up with nothing at the end of the month because no one taught them that money, like a river, has no loyalty. It flows toward whatever opening you give it. And if you give it no direction, it'll find every crack in your life and disappear through it. Subscriptions, convenience spending, lifestyle inflation, and impulse buys. And then the month ends. There's nothing left. And you feel the same way the farmers of Mwanzo felt, standing in the mud, asking, where did it all go? This isn't a character flaw. It's physics. Water finds the lowest point. Money finds the path of least resistance. Neither of them is wrong. They're simply being what they are. Your job is to give your money a direction before it finds its own. Lesson 2. A budget is a riverbank for your money. the word budget has a reputation problem. For most people, it carries the energy of scarcity and denying yourself the pleasures of life, of feeling guilty whenever you look at your bank account. So we need to change the way we think about what a budget is. A budget isn't a list of things you can't have. It's a map of where your money is going, drawn by you before the month begins, when you are calm and intentional, instead of discovered by you at the end of the month, when the money is already gone and you're trying to reconstruct what happened. Think about what the elders of Mwanzo actually built. They built banks that told the water, "Here's where you're most powerful. Here's where you will do the most good. Here's how to reach the fields that need you." The river didn't lose anything. It gained purpose. That's what a budget does for your money. You're not taking money away from yourself when you budget. You're deciding, with a clear head in advance, what each amount is going to do this month. This money feeds my family. This money services my debt. This money builds my future. This portion here is mine to spend freely and joyfully without guilt, because I have already taken care of everything that matters. That last part is important. A good budget includes spending money. Joy isn't the enemy of financial health. Unplanned and emotionally reactive spending is the enemy. There's a difference. One nourishes you, the other floods you. So remember, a budget doesn't shrink your life. It makes your money reach further into your goals, your security, your future, your freedom. Lesson 3. Without structure, abundance becomes chaos. The village was not poor when the flood came. The river wasn't withholding. The problem was not scarcity. The problem was abundance with no structure to hold it. More money does not automatically mean more stability. More income does not automatically mean more wealth. A higher salary does not automatically mean a better financial life. We tell ourselves, if I just earned more, everything would be fine. If I just got that raise or that bonus, that next contract, everything would sort itself out. But studies across decades, cultures, and income levels tell us the same inconvenient truth. People tend to expand their spending to meet and then exceed their income. There's a word for this. It's called lifestyle inflation. And it's silent. It simply arrives like floodwater. Gradually, then all at once. You earn more, so you move somewhere nicer. You move somewhere nicer, so you need a better car to match. You get a better car, so now you need nicer clothes. And before you know it, you need the same raise again just to stay level. When income grows, the question is not, what do I get to spend this on? The question is, what structure do I add to make sure this abundance serves me for the next decade, not just the next month? Lesson 4. Automate the flow. When the elders built the banks and the channels, they built the system once. And then the water found the right path automatically, because the path had been prepared in advance. That's the most important financial insight of the modern age, and almost nobody uses it. We treat saving and investing as acts of discipline, as things we do when we have enough left over at the end of the month. But here's the truth about human beings. We aren't wired for delayed gratification. We're wired for the opposite. Every part of our brain that makes us want things wants them now. And if you put money in an account that you can see, access and spend, you will spend it, simply because you're human. The solution is to automate your savings. Set up a transfer into a savings or investment account the moment your salary arrives, before you touch it or even see it, before your brain has time to decide it needs new shoes. The river finds the channel before you even wake up. Automate your emergency fund. Automate your retirement contribution. Automate your investment debit order. This is called paying yourself first. And here's the most awesome part. After a few months of automation, You stop noticing the money that leaves first. Your lifestyle adjusts to what remains. The wealth accumulates without you having to think about it. Lesson 5. Control increases peace, not just wealth. The last lesson is about what guided and structured money actually gives you in the end. There's a particular kind of anxiety that lives in the bodies of people who don't know where their money is. It's the anxiety of uncertainty, of opening a banking app and feeling dread before the screen even loads, of being afraid to do the maths, of avoiding conversations about money in your relationship because you both know the numbers are bad and talking about them will make them real. Millions of people live in this anxiety because they have no structure or plan. The river is there, flowing constantly, but they can't see where it's going, and they're afraid of what they will find if they look. The antidote to financial anxiety isn't more money. It's knowing what's happening with the money you have. When you build a budget, you graduate from financial fear to financial clarity. And clarity, even when the numbers are uncomfortable, is always better than uncertainty, because you can adjust, you can improve, you can make a plan. That's what financial literacy, applied consistently, actually gives you. The daily, low-grade, easy-to-miss gift of not being afraid. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this story and learned something from it. Let us know in the comments which financial lesson you want to implement in your life. Now, stick around for more Tales from the Money Tree.